Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we are going to take a look. We're going to take a week to look into what's Daggerheart. Daggerheart, the newly released tabletop role-playing game from Darrington Press, one that's been making its rounds, having lots of interactions with the various people in the interwebs. And I thought we would take a look at this. I'm calling it a stealthy release of a game. You tricky game designers over there helping the folks at Critical Role come out with their own role-playing game. You're pretty stealthy. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about this in the context of fear and hope, success and failure as we move through each of the stages through these 5 days for this week. And of course, we're definitely going to take a look at the SRD, the system reference document, along with an OGL, or basically it's an open game license or a gamer's self-production license. You can produce your own materials for it. Really kind of cool. So anyway, grab your snacks, put your feet up, turn on your brilliance. Of course, you always bring it here when you come to this side of the interwebs. And we're going to talk about Daggerheart and failing with fear. Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Yeah, absolutely. And most likely, well, I thought I would introduce Obsidian Star towards the end of the show, kind of like insert it towards the end, and you'll understand why, as I explained. But today, we're going to talk about fail with fear. Now, if you're unfamiliar with even the concept of failing with fear, the tabletop role-playing game Daggerheart is a game that itself deals with a specific feature in it, which is that you can have success and failure as well as hope and fear. And those two things are not exclusive to each other. So you can have any of the combinations of success, failure, hope, and fear, as well as, of course, there is a critical success. And in the game, how it does this is it has a mechanic in which instead of rolling a d20, it rolls 2 dice. And what happens when you roll 2 or more dice, you do end up with the ability to create some kind of mixed numerical effects, and even start to create for yourself a bell curve. And in a D20 world, lots of us that are gamers on this side of the interwebs love lots of games that don't use the classic D20 as its only randomizer. And we love ourselves dice pools and bell curves and probabilities, using tarot cards and playing cards and all kinds of stuff. And of course, this game does the same thing. So when you roll the 2 12-sided dice, each being visually different than the other. Let's see if I do have some dice in here. Let's get this one, and that's technically a D6. Here we go. Let's get this die out of here. A little difficult to see, but I will try to make it as easy as possible. You will have 2 12-sided dice, and ooh, that's pretty bright, reflecting on that white die. But anyway, one will represent hope, probably, or more likely than not, the lighter colored white one here. It's kind of a pearlescent, difficult to see the numbers on it. And then we have a darker die here. And when you roll the dice, you roll both dice and add them together. But there's a chance that one die will of a higher numerical value than the other one. You roll a 4 and a 7, you roll an 8 and a 1, you roll a 12 and a 10, and one of those dice is noted as hope, the other one is fear. So today we're going to talk about failing. We're going to talk about results that have a mixed result to them. So instead of just passing and failing, this game has embraced it. And one of the stealthy things, I'm going to mention it today and mention it as we move on. One of the stealthy things they did with this game is keep all the classic D&D-isms on the side of the player. Pretty much 70%, and this is just a generalization, subjective thing. I haven't played the game, but I have read the game. 70% of the D&D-isms that we're used to, whether it is stats and character features and the mechanics of the game, rest on the player side. But on the GM side, on the game master side, it's like 70% narrator, storyteller elements. And this matrix of this economy of hope and fear blends the two together, forcing the mechanical player side D&D-isms to interact with the narrative part, and then the game master having all the narration and the storytelling elements, blending that in with the mechanics. And I think it does a brilliant job. Some would say it's not very new. That's fine, but a refinement of those features, and the game designers themselves have actually given credit to the other games they've taken this from, and I really appreciate that. Let's see. Do they give? I want to see the list of the games. Let's see if they put it in the SRD. No, they did not. To shout out to the other games, I don't see that. But we're also going to share the beginning of the SRD with you guys, and hopefully you guys will like it. All right, let's move down. Sorry, before I share this out, I just want to make sure. All right, let's get back to your comments here. Drew says the 4 results matrix of Daggerheart is similar to what FFG did with Genesis and Star Wars earlier, but I think Daggerheart does it better, since having the positive and negative results on different dice was, in my humble opinion, a bad design. Yet let it be known that I don't own the books. I am using the SRD, which is free, but others have remarked that the designers gave credit on like page 2, giving credit to Fantasy Flight Games, the Genesis system, Blades in the Dark, Powered by the Apocalypse, and a lot of other narrative games. And one of the aspects of narrative games is how to explain this. Narrative games simulate the rise and fall of literary storytelling, and uses that rise and fall of literary storytelling as an economy in the game. More specifically, when I say literary, what I mean by that is, we're going off in space. Let me change this around. What I mean by that is that the game system isn't about, the world does not operate in the way that we think it does in reality. Instead, what we have are spotlight and story beats, and that's what I mean by literary, using a literary simulationism, so that characters who have a downturn could have an upbeat. Characters, on the other hand, that have an upbeat could have a downturn. Enemies that are a growing danger is on the horizon, and despite the fact that the characters themselves don't know it, they still can act or react to a danger that's looming in the distance. And a lot of these things are features, if you think about storytelling, rises and falls of characters being in the spotlight, and secondary characters rising to the top, and then others fading to the background. And now in reality that doesn't exist, but if you were to exist in a novel or a movie or a graphic novel or a play, that would be the reality of your character. And so Fantasy Flight Games and the Genesis system, and what Daggerheart does here does a little more elegantly, is that you can both succeed or fail, and then mixed with that you can succeed or fail with hope or fear. So today we're going to talk about failing with fear. So a character can perform an action, and understand in this game, rolling the dice isn't always a good thing. And what I mean by that for players, and players are going to need to learn this in this game, unlike classic Dungeons and Dragons where you roll the dice and you either succeed or fail, and if you fail, you get to try again, for the most part. In this game, it's not actually a good thing to keep rolling dice, because every time the dice are rolled, the situation changes, your circumstances can change. And the reason why you don't want that is because when the circumstances changes, it doesn't mean it's going to change for the better. You may fail, and you may also fail with fear. And so what happens in the game is there is a meta currency called hope or fear. And what I love about it is that the hope or fear could really be hope or fear as emotionally dictated in the game. And so for example, if you fail, let's say a character, let's pick a classic classic encounter. Characters try to pick a lock and they're being quiet. It's a heist. They need to be quiet, they need to break in, and one of the characters is going to pick the lock. And when they pick the lock, they fail with the lock and they roll the dice, and unfortunately the higher of the two dice that they rolled has fear. And that fear, more likely than not, will go into the hands of the game master. So hope becomes something that the players can spend for themselves, to make themselves better, to enhance another role, to spend on one of their character features. For the game master earns fear. And what I love about this is, and it's really stealthy, in the game, the game rules in Daggerheart restrict the game master by giving them the ability to do whatever they want. Contradictory, right? So when the game master gets fear, the idea is that the fear sits there on the table, that the players should know that the game master has fear and how much of it. And the fear can then be spent by the game master to perform certain actions of the world, and the game master represents the world. And what I mean by curtailing or funneling or restricting the game master is when the game master wants to make the life of the players hard, to complicate their lives, to put danger in front of them, they spend fear. So every time the players roll some of these dice, let's get the ASMR here, and they roll the dice, picking up and rolling the dice means you have it's actually like 55%, 45%. But anyway, you have a good chance of handing over yet one more feature of fear, one more element of fear to the game master. And the game master can sit on that fear and let it build, players knowing that the hammer may fall in the future, or the game master could spend that immediately by interrupting what the players are doing to complicate their lives, to bring more danger. So in the picking the lock feature, the player let's do a comparison. In regular Dungeons and Dragons, the player rolls a d20, and if they fail to pick the lock. And rules as written, there's not really much else that happens. Go to pick the lock, fail, roll again. But in Daggerheart, if you roll and you fail with fear, you've just given the game master the ability to interrupt what you're doing, to put something in your place. Maybe reinforcements are called. Maybe your lockpick breaks. Maybe it falls, your lockpick gets stuck in the lock and you can't get it back out. Or you trigger an alarm. Or the lockpick triggers something on the other side of the door that's dangerous or lethal or problematic, and you don't know what it's about. Maybe you make too much noise and guards start coming towards your area. Any number of those things could happen by that game master getting that fear. So as a player, you go, do I want to roll again and again and again? You know, is that really a smart thing? And like a story and like real life, very rarely do people just pass and fail. Very rarely do people succeed or fail in the things that they do. There's usually a mixed success. A player, a real life person gets a new job, but now they lose out on the group of people they were hanging out with before because of a new schedule. Someone misses a bus, but then they benefit from the fact that that bus got into an accident 5 minutes later, and they're like, "Ooh, glad I missed that one." Usually, humanity brings about itself a lot of mixed successes in the world, and of course, when we read books and watch movies and television, mixed successes are the bread and butter of great storytelling. Yay, our characters succeeded, but oh no, they're in another bit of danger. Oh no, they failed, but yay, there's something else that happens. Or in this case today, we're going to talk about failure with fear. Oh no, not only did they fail, but something additionally goes wrong. So in Daggerheart, very rarely do people fail at everything they do unless you're married, in which case it wouldn't matter your success or successes. They're going to be considered failures anyway. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Drew says, I missed my ship. It was the Titanic. Slow clap on that one. And guess what? That was a real thing. That literally was a real thing. There was another ship, sorry, useless information. The Titanic wasn't initially supposed to be the first sailing. Many rich and powerful people wanted to sail on the, I think it was called the Gigantic, which was supposed to be the first ship, and the Titanic was finished, which was supposed to be the second ship. It got finished first, and many people were disappointed they didn't go on a Titanic until they realized what happened, and then it was like, ooh, I missed that one. Ow. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, sorry for people that passed away in a Titanic, but it's been a while. When a player fails with fear, it's possible for the game master to just interrupt what happens. When I say interrupt, I don't mean like, oh, in the middle of the player discussing what they're doing, the game master literally interrupts them vocally. What it means is that the game master can then go, okay, you try to pick the lock, but now it's my turn. Here's my fear. Here's my fear token. And guess what? This other thing happens. You hear guards mumbling, turning the corner, and suddenly they hear a noise and they say, hey, Adriana and Gregorio, go check out that noise. Sound the alarm. Or you hear a loud click and something clicks on the other side of the door. You now know there's no way to unlock this door. You're gonna have to figure another way into the room. And you're like, oh, damn it, right? Those are the kind of things where the game master can interrupt. But the game master can also hold on to that fear. And that fear being present on the table, that fear being present somehow as a token. If you're playing online, I would hope that there's some way for the game master to reinforce to the players, I've got 3 fear now. Oops, now I've got 4 fear. I'm gonna just sit on this for a while, using it like a sword of Damocles, right? A sword dangling by a thread over top of the players' heads, knowing that as the players do each thing, they move through the world, much like the old OSR with the 10-foot pole tapping everywhere because you're afraid of tripping over something and danger might come about. The fear tokens, the earning of fear for the game master, is a physical manifestation of the psychological dangers of the world, and I really appreciate that in this game. Was the Gigantic also made at the same shipyard? That I'm not sure about. I don't remember. I think there were going to be 3 ships: the Titanic, the Gigantic, and the I can't remember the other one. It does that antic thing at the end of it. I can't remember. The Olympic. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the Titanic's Gigantic and the Olympic. Yep. It's unsinkable. Oops. Critical fail. So in the game, first, the bounded ability for the game master to interrupt the players is given with this fear mechanic, and I really love it. Now, when players fail in many games, the idea that a player can fail and nothing happens is kind of boring, right? Very rarely in a story. Remember, because this is not the real world. This is not this tabletop game is not a simulation of the real world. Instead, it is a simulation of a literary world. And very rarely in books and novels and television shows do characters do a thing that leads to nothing. As a matter of fact, in a strange way, our brains pick up on useless encounters. Sometimes we will watch a show, and some of us that are familiar with the intricacies of how storytelling is done will say, you know what? That scene between those two characters kind of didn't result in anything. It didn't move the story. And you'll hear something where it says, a scene did not move the story forward. And what that means is that no new information was given, no new dynamic was established, the characters returned back to the state that they were when the scene started. It literally meant zero things happened. And sometimes subconsciously we pick that up. Others of us that are very literary minded will pick up on those things and go, you know what? There's 3 scenes in this movie or this television show that mean nothing. And that feeling of doing nothing in a tabletop role-playing game also comes through, where we roll the dice and go, shrug our shoulders and go, all right, I failed. Okay, next 15 minutes to wait for my turn. By the way, Daggerheart does a unique thing where it gets rid of the failing on your turn and then nothing happens and you have to wait 15 minutes for your initiative round to come back around. They do something unique with that. But in this regard, when players fail, one thing that I think is a best practice for mixed results is to divorce the outcome of success and failure from the hope and fear mechanic. So, in other words, a player that fails to pick a lock, it's not necessary for you to make the failure something that deals with the character's capabilities. Sometimes the world just keeps moving. And when the world keeps moving, sometimes you're hopeful because the world does a thing that makes it better for you. Sometimes it's fearful and the world just gets worse in your regard. A human being that's walking around town and suddenly a storm happens, that has nothing to do with the player's actions. That storm could be very windy, it could be torrential rain, it could be a lightning strike, there could be flash floods, there could be overflooding sewer systems, and that's not the player's fault. It's just the world moving. And one of the actions the game master can take is to make a move. Now, I don't particularly like the Powered by the Apocalypse nomenclature of making soft moves and hard moves, but Daggerheart game uses that terminology, so we will use it. But essentially, it gives the game master permission to interrupt the world, to tell you that, you know what, you gave me a fear token. You rolled the dice. You guys rolled the dice, and now I've got fear tokens, and I'm going to use this fear to elevate the danger of the environment, elevate the danger of the world. Remember all that lore dumping that I did with you? I'm going to dump some more lore on you, and it's going to make your life even worse. And the idea that there's this subconscious note by the act of the game master using fear itself as a meta currency is also an emotional currency, right? Because the players are all around the table and like playing Jenga and pulling a block, which there's already a game called Dread that does this. You don't know what's going to happen, and the game master can go, ha, now I can be adversarial. Now I can make life worse. Boom, I'm going to use this fear, and guess what? The storm, the dark clouds that I foreshadowed earlier that had no game effect and the players just ignored. Now it's starting to downpour, starting to rain. Oh, by the way, all the people that were walking the streets that no one noticed you, now everyone's going to take cover inside. So anyone daring to walk out in the storm is probably going to be noticed, and no one's going to want to open their door. Okay, is that real danger? Is that a mechanical feature? No, but that's describing this town, that city state that the players have just entered, and things have gotten worse. They thought they could walk around in the crowded streets, this being a very metropolitan area, but now it's starting to downpour. And this is just me coming up with a simple feature of using that fear to complicate the lives of the players. Drew says some scenes might not push the plot, but often they delve into theme or further the mood. Exactly. I mean, look at the 2 minutes in Host in the Shell in which we get nothing but music and pictures of the city, yet I would not say those are wasted. You know, Ghost in the Shell, that's it, yep. What Drew is mentioning is that, and we're both on the same page, but Drew is pointing out a fact that even if the story, well, let me take this back. When we see scenes like in Ghost in the Shell, they did 2 minutes of taking a look at the city. Blade Runner did the same thing, sci-fi city, and looking over this dark dystopian city. All the Lords of the Ring movies are like 3.5 hours plus, right? And we get to see our main characters running across these beautiful landscapes. That is still storytelling. That is still moving the story forward, because we are given a visual glimpse of what we as game masters would basically call lore dumping. We're telling you what the environment is like, what the mood is like. We're even giving you background in terms of our main characters, right? So while the plot may not move forward, we may be given new insight into background of the characters. Interactions between 2 or more characters we have yet to see before. We reveal more history with the characters, some of their skills and capabilities, their opinion about an ethical or moral dilemma that happened earlier in another scene. So fluffy bullshit time is not necessarily useless if it gives us more insight, and that in itself is moving the plot forward, because now we understand, oh, we get a flashback scene about a childhood. We get to see the warrior confronted with the pacifist and their animosity towards each other, their conflict, which does give us more fuel, so that when more scenes come forward, now does the warrior and the pacifist help each other, or are they going to refuse to help each other in an important scene coming in the future? We wouldn't have that information if it wasn't for the fluffy bullshit time, which is very important in a story, if the plot is not getting moved forward. So all of that, I believe, is important when it comes to storytelling. Even though we might say, I don't care about hearing those people talk. Well, in hindsight, maybe you'd like to understand what that's about. John Wick is a perfect example of an action movie that does this, right? John Wick, in the John Wick movies, they show him getting these gold coins and spending the coins. Well, what does that have to do with killing people? Well, it fills out the world of the Continental and its background of these assassins and the type of things that are bought and sold and what they value and don't value. And that is giving us even more insight into the character and the character's honor and purpose and blah, 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 right? Same thing for storytelling. And the Daggerheart tabletop role-playing game mechanizes that feature, and I really think it's important. So failing with fear. One of the hard parts in this game that a lot of players, and you hear this as a comment from people who don't like narrative games. And one of the parts of narrative games that really challenges players and complicates the lives, they say, I don't want to have to come up with a mixed result all the time. It feels like, from this point of view, that you're always trying to come up with complications, and that you are always on deck, and that you can only think of so many complications all the time. What Daggerheart does, which again, using the hope and fear, what it does is that, first of all, here's the myth. Stop. Let me go back a little bit. Here's a myth for all of you out there who are nervous about running a game that has mixed results. Don't take that all on yourself. You don't have to do that all on your own. There's no why do that to you? Why hurt your own feelings? It's not just your responsibility. Use the hive mind, right? On this station, I talk about mind fuel all the time. I'm not smart. I'm going to use everybody around me. I'm going to vicariously use Thru and the Shy Squad and everybody else that comes on this channel. I'm going to use you guys to help me out. And I'll say up front, you can be subtle with this if you want to be slick, but I'm going to say up front, like, oh, guys, picking the lock, man, what could happen now? You failed with fear. Oof. What do you think could happen? And use everybody around the table because everyone else has a good idea. So as a game master, it's not up to you, it's up to everybody else. Here's another thing that happens with rolling these dice, okay? When rolling the dice, let me see if I can get it. When rolling the dice, this is only going to happen about, you're only going to get the fear half the time, a little bit less than half the time, because a critical success is when you roll doubles for the players. If they ever roll doubles for any reason, they get a critical success. So double ones is a critical success on the player side. Oh, thanks, Drew. Don't blame me. It's your fault. Yeah, I'm sure you, DBJ, are smart. At least in one of many ways intelligence can manifest itself. There's what, like 9 to 12 ways intellect is manifested or something. There's some record like that. Whatever. But in the way we're talking about tabletop role-playing games, first of all, you don't need to take the narrative load on yourself. Second of all, it's not going to happen all the time, every time, right? Half the time, the game master gets fear. The other half the time, the player gets hope. Now, remember, when the players get a critical success, they also get some hope. So you're not going to have to navigate fear all the time. Second of all, you don't need to spend it right away. As a game master, if you don't have a good idea and the players will shrug their shoulders and they go, I don't know, you could bank it. Now, the players might try to manipulate you a little bit. They might say, I'm trying to pick the lock, and I don't have a good idea what might happen. Ooh, right? And the game master goes, yeah, I don't either. I'm just going to bank it, which means all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. You're just handing the game master more and more fear, and they're not spending it, and more fear, not spending it. So at some point, you get into the next fight, the next complication, the next conflict, the next thing. The game master can go fear, bang, fear, bang, fear, bang. And you're like, oh, the big bad evil guy at the end of the game is going to have 7 fear that's held by the game master. Oh no. You know, maybe you want the game master to spend some of that fear right now. Maybe the players have non-combat capabilities that they would love to get the spotlight to spend on those fears when they try to cross the rickety rope bridge and it snaps, and our very acrobatic character holds on for dear life and climbs up the ladder at the last minute or something. Maybe they'd like to have the spotlight and go through that. Maybe that rope bridge wouldn't have snapped if that fear wasn't available, right? So fear is this potential engine, and it sits there waiting for its use. And it also means that if you're not creative at the very moment, you know, not many of us are improv artists. You know, there are some great comedians that can just get up on stage and they get hecklers and they can just improv with the crowd and make fun of the crowd. Not every comedian is on point. And so just like an improv artist, maybe we're not on point. Maybe our creative juices aren't flowing at that moment, or maybe we just don't have that in us. You know, if we sit down for a couple of hours or days, we can write out some great scripts, but you know, being on deck, come up with something fancy and cool and snappy, that's very difficult to do. But if you hold on to that fear, it still gives you that potential energy to go, I know. Yeah, the downfall of your demonic origin character that is walking the mortal realm, and a demonic patronage that's coming to take your soul away at some point in the future. I got 3 fear. I'm holding on to that for you, right? In a weird way, the fear becomes storytelling fuel for every character in the game. Every character that wants to be hunted. What? Why do I suck so much? Because your mommy is busy? What is that? I've never heard that quote. You're strange. It sounds weird. That's so weird. I love it. The idea that the idea that the fear can be held over is basically a positive way for us to go, I'm not creative right now, but maybe later on in the game. Also, that fear on the narrative side, like I said, is very stealthy. The fear matrix on the game master side is pure narrative fuel. But when they implement it, the game master can then implement it mechanically, falling over into the player's D&Dized side of the game. Now, I'm gonna I'll show some of the SRD in just a moment. Another thing that happens in the game, not only should you use the fuel of the players and hold on to the fear if you can't think of anything. Another way of thinking about this is that within the game Daggerheart, and I love this because you guys know I'm very much a proponent of using the environment. The environment itself has a stat block, like a monster stat block. The environment itself has a stat block. Now, the environment could be anything as small as, remember that thunderstorm on the horizon? But it could be a clock. Now remember, you guys know, clocks from very commonly stolen from, maybe not stolen, an homage given to Blades in the Dark. And Daggerheart very much has been like, yeah, we took it from Blades in the Dark. Yeah, we did. So they took clocks as well. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, D&D-esque side, you know, insert puke emoji here. Exactly. Oh man, yeah. It's very, the player side is very D&D-esque. Yes, it is. Drew's like, seriously? Oh. Like I said, this game is designed very stealthy. If you have a clock or multiple clocks in the background, the looming danger, the fronts, the what's the other term that's used in like 13th Age? Oh, Powered by Apocalypse, 13th Age, and icons or whatever. You can use that fear to tick, 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 tick down the dangers in the future. DBJ, you mentioned dealing with hecklers. That was Steve Albini's legendary spontaneous reaction. Oh, to a cry of "You suck" during Quiet Part at a shellac concert. I did not know that. Oh, yeah. Now I get my brain sick. Why do I suck so much? Because your mom is busy. Yeah, you know, Bill Burr he did a classic run, like a 15-minute run in Philadelphia, and there's like audio of it all the time where he just ripped it to the hecklers at a like a pre-show or something for a game, and people were just like drunk and pissed off. Yeah, there's some comedians that are like legendary in dealing with hecklers. So much. Let's see, yeah. Shice goes on to say, the environment has a stat block reminiscent of Neth, the demi-plane that lives from the Planescape Guide to the Ethereal Plane. Not so much, but yes. I mean, you could absolutely make a living plane, like a living landscape or something. But the Daggerheart doesn't make stat blocks like the environment is alive, but they describe them as having an impulse, and like um, a place with a lot of falling rocks and earthquakes and mountain and rock slides. It's not alive, but it has a stat block. And that stat block is fueled by that fear that the game master has, which means they could cause a rock slide or an earthquake or tumbling rocks or shaking ground or a mudslide, right? That storm might have a stat block, and that stat block is activated by the fear that players get. Torrential rain, flood, gusts of wind, downpour, low sight, muddy streets, floodwaters, a bolt of lightning, things of that nature. And no, me as a game master, and this is the beauty of Daggerheart. It's no, I'm not the game master punishing you. I'm the game master with fear that you rolled the dice and you gave me. I'm just following the rules of the game, and you are in a fearful place. There's going to be a lightning strike. You need to watch out. Fear as generalized layer actions. Fear as fuel for layer actions. Yes, if you want to call it that. With layer actions divorced from any creatures that are there. So the layer is a layer, if you want to call it that. It's the setting itself. And you could make it anything. This could be a dinner party. This doesn't need to be like how I often describe it, like storms, deserts, swamps. It doesn't need to be that. It could be a factory. It could be a dinner party. It could be a legal proceeding. It could be a sewer. It could be anywhere you are. What's the term? No matter where you go, there you are. That's the thing. It's that. And then the fear is the engine that makes where you are complicated. So at a dinner party of rich folks and the players are there and they're hiding and they're trying to gain some information, and I would definitely foreshadow these dangers. So there's a possibility of being found. For example, one fear might be loudmouth, arrogant person points out player. Dinner party in the sewer, yeah, right. Yeah. Shai says spontaneity is the crucial factor in heckler reactions. Yeah. That mom is busy thing took him about 0.1 seconds to shoot back. Yeah. If you're a good comedian, like you said, that build up, that strike back, that instant, that spontaneity, yeah. If you're good or you're on, boom, boom, boom. And some game masters are like that. Some game masters are like, they're quick. You do something, I do something. You do something, bam, I strike back. Boom, boom, boom. And fear, fresh math, burger, yeah. Drew, you're so silly. So fear can be anything. Maybe there's a drunk heckler at the party. Maybe there is a very serious historian at the party that questions the players about their origins, challenging them. Maybe there's someone at the party who's very suspicious and always looking for people that are trying to crash these very expensive dinner parties, and they're looking for a spy. They're looking for someone who's pretending, i.e. the player characters. Maybe there is the rich debutante that's hosting the party and wants the players to perform, step up. Hey, speak some poetry or dance or play a musical instrument. Hey, entertain everyone. And that might be a fear for a lot of players. I'm not characters, players, right? You got to step up and dance. Hey, player, not character. Make a poem real quick, a haiku now, right now. Fear, boom, 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 right? That's fearful. It's like standing in front of people naked. Right? Put you up on deck. And I could see that being an actual in-character fearful thing for players to do. Like, please don't spend the fear on me. Please don't spare the fear on me. And the game master's like, ha, you got to come up with a funny limerick right now. And you're like, ah. So, Chase says, I totally lack the brain power for those snappy retorts and bitterly envy those who have it. You know what makes it worse? Having enough wherewithal in your brain to come up with a snappy retort 3 hours later. Because that's even worse, right? Like, if you couldn't come up with anything, you're like, damn. It's even worse when you go, oh, fuck, I should have said this 3 hours ago. That yeah, that rat meat burgers are sponsored by your fear, right? So again, players, yeah, I'm looking at you, players. With the, I gotta get some of these. Here we go, ASMR. Go ahead, roll dice. Go ahead, keep rolling. Maybe you shouldn't in this game, and I like that dynamic of players being hesitant to want to just pick up the dice, roll the dice. I'm looking at you, 5e players, and go, I want to see hey, do I notice anything? Perception check, right? And it's like, this game is kind of telling you, like, you don't really want to do that. You might want to, don't roll the dice. How about we describe what we're going to do, fiction first, and then, because now I gotta share out the game, okay? Fiction first, and then describe what you're doing, and wait. Hold your horses. Wait for the player character. Wait for the game master to tell you whether you've succeeded or failed. And this means that let's go to that dinner party, right? And you don't want to be picked by having that fear pointed the hell at you to come up with a funny limerick or dance a funny jig or tell some historical thing that's some like deep-seated knowledge or whatever. How about you as the player go, well, my character, and you look at your character sheet and you say, well, my character is from the deep southern reaches in the dark blah, blah, blah. I'm going to talk about a story. And the game master might go, okay, don't roll the dice. Right now, you come up with a story, a background that your character is involved in, and you tell it to this dinner party, and you tell me, but it becomes a real thing in the world. And the player goes, oh, cool. I was part of a secret organization of assassins or something, right? And the game master's like, I don't know if you want to tell people this, but okay. I'm intrigued. Where are you going? And that becomes a fun part of the game without having to roll. The sneaky character. Do I notice anybody else sneaking around this party? Instead of rolling the dice and going, hey, game master, get some fear. Instead you go, do I notice anyone? And the game master goes, yeah, you do. You notice someone else. It's clearly dressed, at least with your eyes, dressed as a rich noble, a baron from somewhere, but you realize that this person doesn't fit they are a close imitation of the baron from the northern reaches or whatever, right? You can eat the rat meat burger or you will become the next round of burgers. Sizzle. So today, this is the interaction. The introduction to the game. And this gives us this is the SRD for the Daggerheart. And I do have the link in the doobly-doo down below. You can also go to daggerheart.com, which will take you directly there, or to Darrington Press, and take you to the game. This is the SRD, which is all of the fluff ripped out of it. It's 135 pages, and if you want to play the game and try the game, you may do it on your own. This is it is a collaborative fantasy tabletop role-playing game of incredible magic and heroic, heartfelt adventure. And I want to believe that this elevator pitch right here, they did a good job in describing it. Very collaborative, like I mentioned. Hope and fear, we can collaborate on what that means. It's definitely fantasy tropes. It is a tabletop role-playing game, D&D-esque on the player's side. Incredible magic and heroic, heartfelt adventure. Yes, especially with the hope and fear mechanic. So here we have some golden rules and how it's written, how you can use the SRD. But, of course, there's a golden rule. Most important rule, if you don't like it, change it. I know lots of people hate this rule, but rules lawyers never report back to this rule being the golden rule, or what they call Rule 0 sometimes. The most important rule of Daggerheart is to make the game your own. The rules included in this SRD are designed to help you enjoy the experience at the table, but everyone has a different approach to interpreting rules and telling stories. The rules should never get in the way of the story you want to tell. the characters you want to play, or the adventure you want to have. As long as your group agrees, nothing can be adjusted. Everything can be adjusted to fit your play style. If there's a rule you'd rather ignore or modify, feel free to implement any change with your table's consent. But we go down here, rulings over rules. I love this, rulings over rules. So it does say, for example, the SRD offers answers for many questions your table may have about the game, but it won't answer all of them. For example, Daggerheart has a weapon called a grappler that lets you pull a target close to you. If you try to use it to pull an entire castle, the weapon text doesn't forbid you from doing that, but it doesn't make sense within the narrative. Instead, the GM might rule that you pull a few bricks out or pull yourself toward the wall instead. In other words, the fiction first, common sense, fiction first, fiction. It's a narrative-focused game. If it doesn't make sense, you can't do it. Doesn't matter if, well, the game doesn't say you can't do it. No. Just like we accept that a bow and arrow shoots arrows and a sword is not a ranged weapon, it doesn't have to say it's not a ranged weapon. The narrative and the fiction tells us that you can't do that thing. The idea of, I jump off the 500-foot cliff and flap my wings doesn't work in a narrative fiction first game. No, the fiction tells me you can't fly. I don't care if you can. Yes, you flap your wings and fall to your death. It even says that in here. Similarly, if your character does something that would logically result in immediate death, such as diving into an active volcano without protection, you might not get to make one of Daggerheart's death moves, which normally give you control of your character's fate in their final moments. This kind of consequence should be made clear before the action is completed, and it should always follow the logic of the world. I don't know why we have to say these things, but there are players who are like, well, the game doesn't say I can't do this thing, so that blah, blah, blah. So that tells you what it is. It talks about the D12s, the duality dice. They're actually called duality dice, rolling the 2D12 and rolling them and adding them together. And then we go into character creation. Classes, subclasses, things like that. What are the stats? Agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge. Okay, whatever. 6 stats, you get it. D&D-isms. Hold down that vomit there, Drew. Hold it down. Heritage, class, all of this stuff is player-facing. And like I said, we've got hit points and evasion and blah, blah, blah. Very much player-focused and player-facing. But there's something here I want to show you, because we will, if you like, guys want to, we could talk about character creation, but I want to show you something here. There is something here called create your experiences. I don't really like the word experiences, but you gotta pick something. But not all of us are a thesaurician, but I get it, okay? So experiences are basically a word or phrase that represents your character's background or behavior. And there's no list. There's no list at all. So you make up a thing and your character has it. Darrington, the game designers, Darrington Press, stole this. They admit it. They took this from, I believe it's called 13th Age, called One Unique Thing. And I love this part of it. So every character begins with one unique thing. And it says, an experience is a word or phrase used to encapsulate a specific set of skills, personality traits, or aptitudes your character has acquired over the course of their life. When your PC makes a move, it's an action, they can spend a hope to add a relevant experience modifier to the action roll. Your PC gets 2 experiences at character creation, each with a +2 modifier. So it's like a +2 bonus. And it, as long as it relates to your experience. Now it says there's no set list of experiences to choose from, but an experience can't be too broadly applicable, and it can't grant your character specific mechanical benefits, such as magic spells or special abilities. For example, and this is what a bad actor would have. For example, lucky and highly skilled are too broad because they could be applied to virtually any role. Likewise, supersonic flight and invulnerable imply game-breaking special abilities. In other words, don't be an asshole, pick something that fits within the narrative of the game. And here we have example experiences. Backgrounds: assassin, blacksmith, bodyguard, bounty hunter, chef to the royal family, circus performer, field medic, fallen monarch, politician, runaway, scholar, world traveler, blah, blah, blah. Then there's characteristics: affable, battle-hardened, bookworm, helpful, intimidating, lone wolf, loyal, observant, sticky fingers, stubborn to a fault, young and naive. Then there's specialties like acrobat, gambler, healer, inventor, map maker, master of disguise, swashbuckler. There's skills like animal whisperer, barter, deadly aim, fast learner. I was going to say bartender, which could actually work. Liar, light feet, negotiator. And then I love these phrases at the bottom here. I love these phrases. Catch me if you can. Fake it till you make it. And so many of these are just like so common knowledge. I'm like, damn, you could make a list of like hundreds of these phrases used throughout history. First time's the charm. Hold the line. I won't let you down. I'll catch you. I've got your back. Knowledge is power. Nature's friend. Never again. No one left behind. Pick on someone your own size. The show must go on. This is not a negotiation. Wolves in sheep's clothing. I love these phrases. And you're like, did they stealthy, right? Did they sneak this into character creation so that gulp, a player must make their D&D-esque character something a little bit more than just a bunch of stats and numbers and stuff? I love that. I love that feature. Let me go back to what you guys were saying. Flavorless. You're so funny. Flavorless rat burgers. Drew says that that golden rule sounds like the one the World of Darkness games used to have. Yep. Personally, I call it soft rules. Okay. Drew also goes to mention the experiences sounds much more boring than the unique thing from 13th Age, which was exactly something that is not ordinary. Exactly. This doesn't say. I mean, this. So. Stealth works, right? What I think they're doing here is, yes, you can default to up here, right? Acrobat, gambler, master of disguise, swashbuckler, tactician. You could default to that very easily and just go, I'm just going to make a D&D character who's like a spy or a warrior or a wizard. Right? You could do that. But down here, if you're brilliant, you can get all of the benefits of the above in a phrase that focuses down here. So no one left behind, right? If your phrase, I'm going to call it one unique thing, even though that's not exactly what these are. These are just called experiences, so it's not exact. But if I pick no one left behind, and I get a +2, I spend a hope and get a +2. What does that mean? Does that mean that I get a +2 to dodge attacks, to run back, to save my fallen comrade? Probably. Does this mean I get the ability to use a roll to find where my fallen comrade is? Because I can't find them. They got captured. And they're behind enemy lines. And I'm like, no one left behind. I'm not turning back. I'm going. Does this give me a bonus on resisting fear? Because the ghosts have like a fear ability, but I'm going to go back and find my ally. And now I get a +2 bonus to resist fear. Does that work? If I'm smart, I can get, if I pick a phrase, I can kind of get all the stuff that's above and make it fit narratively into the storyline spotlighting a feature that my character has, who believes in no one being left behind. With I can spam this ability, right? If I want to gamify the game, 70% Dungeons and Dragons, right? By living up to the narrative focus of what the character is. And if you're smart, if you want to min-max a character and do it in a way that your game master gives you the slow clap, pick a phrase, right? Find something in a phrase. Don't do the I'm an acrobat and a master of disguise and a swashbuckler and no. Pick one phrase. You actually get two of these, but you pick a phrase and make that part of your character, and you also get to make a great story as well. Stealthy. That's what I feel. Let me go to one more thing before we get out of here. Something that I really love that they did in the game. So we went past what it takes to make a character. It's very short and sweet, but I want to show you something here. And this is the very gamifiable thing that I really love what they did. So the Dungeons and Dragons part of this, we love character classes, don't we? Maybe not all of us, but some of us like character classes. The fighter, the wizard, the rogue. What they did here in Daggerheart was they created something called domains. There are right now 9 domains, although they are working on creating even more of them in something known as the Void. It's basically their unearthed arcana. But every character class that's available is made up of 2 domains, which means you don't need to multi-class in this game. Essentially, if you want to multi-class any type of character, all you really need to do is pick 2 domains, and that becomes your character. So they do have standard character classes that are made up of 2 of these domains, but there's nothing stopping you at all from picking any 2 domains and making that your character class, your background, your profession, whatever. And I think that's very cool. I think it preempts the multi-classing, and then I think it gives the players what they're looking for. That massaging of, I want a lot of options, and I want my D&D-isms, and I want character classes, and I want these other features. Well, that's up to you. You pick 2. And so the list here, we have and I'm not reading them in any particular order. We have Arcana, and it tells you what they are at the very first line. Arcana is the domain of innate and instinctual magic. We've got Midnight, and they sound like what they are. Arcana, Midnight, Sage, Splendor, Blade. Let's move down a little bit. Bone, Valor, Codex, Grace. And they tell you what the class domains are right here. And yes, you are correct. There are far more combinations of 2 domains than there are classes. I guarantee you, this is for supplement books. They're going to do the math. You make a spreadsheet, and you go, you have a spreadsheet with all the domains across the top, all the domains down the side, and you mix and match them and don't do any duplicates. So yes, like the Guardian is Blade and Valor. Let's do the warrior classes. The Guardian is Blade and Valor. The Ranger is Bone and Sage. And the Warrior is Blade and Bone. Right? And then the Seraph is Splendor and Valor and whatnot, and so on and so forth, right? You get to mix and match them. Oops, I don't need to. So that's part of character creation. Tomorrow and the rest of the week, we're going to go through some of these features. I'm going to show you. We will talk about the Game Master side and the player side. We'll talk about fear and hope later on. I didn't go into, like, how do we stack up the fear against the players continually? Like, what happens? Does it feel good for a player to fail and then have fear stack on top of it? No, it doesn't happen. It doesn't feel good. It only happens. What the heck just happened there? It only happens once every 1/5 of the time. It will happen that way. Uh, so it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's very dramatic. And because fear goes into the hands of the game master, there's the great possibility, or actually more generally, the probability that all other players can handle, if they work together, the growing fear that happens in the game. So a player that goes to pick the lock, it doesn't necessarily mean that picking the lock is the player's fault, therefore they have to deal with it. What can actually happen is, yeah, it's the player's fault, we all need to deal with it. Yeah. Oh no. Pathological liar would be hilarious, because they will go out of their way to make up stories that nobody asked for. Ever meet one in real life? Yeah. One of my favorite people is kind of a pathological liar. And she's got issues. Shai says, we love character classes, especially those of us who suck so much at everything that they can only be a fighter. Yep. No, my character would never be afraid of anything. This is a bad check. What you mean, like make? He's so funny. N King says, no, my character would never be afraid of anything. This is a bad check, right? Yeah, my character would never be afraid. I know. I mean, listen, sometimes rules like games, narrative games, let's be honest, let me look at that so nobody hears us. They're excellent bullshit detectors. I'm just letting you know. You get one of those players that just is like one of these a-holes that's just like, you roll your eyes because they're always looking at a way to win the game. A lot of rules light or narrative games where you just get to pick anything you want. Yeah, you find out pretty quick up front that some of these players are just like, fuck, oh, I'm dealing with an asshole, aren't I? Can one of my, listen, since I get to make two things up, I want to be an expert and a prodigy. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm just an expert. You mean an expert at anything? Well, I mean, yeah. And I'm also a prodigy. Like, I was born to be really good at things that I do. You mean everything? I love you, NK. His hairline would never retreat. Why are you making fun of me? My character would never miss or drop his sword or miss his nailing check. Nailing check. I know, you being dirty. I love it. Shai says, my neighbor is a pathological liar. Nobody asked him what his job was, and he went on about how he tests top secret vehicle prototypes for BMW and manages 700 apartments in Munich. Hey, listen, some people are just trying to, they're scraping their way to the top in any kind of way for attention, dude. That's just a thing. That's like anybody's profile on like social media or something. Like, oh, I travel the world. You know, I go on. You know, I go to Dubai all the time. Yeah, wild. Some people are just like that. It's wild how you could keep building these like fictional like lies on top of lies. It's crazy how some people are like that. Yeah, they maybe they feel like they're not good enough. It's kind of a wild thing. So let me pull this back up here. Ooh, come on. Oh, I gotta get rid of this part. So this is just part of the SRD for Daggerheart. Yes, there is a open gaming license, an OGL of sorts for the game. It's let's take a look at what this. Let's see. This is the. I hope I'm showing it. Yeah, this is the Darrington Press Community Gaming License. The CGL is what they're calling it. The Community Gaming License. And it's 8 pages long. And it also comes with logos. And let me show you. This is the attribution information for the Candela Obscura and Daggerheart. So this fills both of those. So of course, with the copyright and attribution thing, right here is where it's at. This product includes materials from the Daggerheart System Reference Document 1.0, Critical Role LLC under the terms of the Darrington Press Community DPCGL, Darrington Press Community Gaming License. More information can be found at daggerheart.com. There are no previous modifications by others. And it tells you about sharing and not imposing all the legalese, right? Don't impose on their restriction. Don't misrepresent yourself. Don't misrepresent them as being part of you and what you're creating. Blah 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 blah. Adaptive content, amendments, limitations, and periods and things like that. Basically, the community gaming license and what you can do. So, yep, they're asking people to join in this. Mind you, this SRD is 135 pages. So we go into like class features and loadouts and the Bard and their special features. We've got all the dice-like mechanics for all of this. Goes on and goes on. Beast form options, scouts, blah blah blah, right? So when you pick your 2 domains, you get to pick features from those 2 domains and you combine them together, and that's who your character is. And so, like here we have the Guardian. The Guardian is a character class. It has domains of Valor and Blade. And so you get to pick the features from Valor and Blade. And then every one of these, remember when you roll the dice, the game master gets the fear, but you gain the hope. And the hope can be spent on things. We have evasion, hit points, class items. They automatically give you a trinket at the top of the game. And then there is some other things like hope features. Frontline tank, spend 3 hope to clear 2 armor slots. Or unstoppable. What else do they have? It gives you some tips. It goes on Guardian subclasses, like the Stalwart. There's background questions. You can either be a Stalwart or a Vengeance Guardian, etc., etc. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Let me see if we can get here's the core materials, core mechanics. There we go. GM moves and adversary actions. And this is kind of the bread and butter of spending that fear and getting to use the fear and what they can do and how to interrupt what the players are doing. Tomorrow we'll get into the initiative, how initiative is done. Essentially, there kind of isn't one. And the one that they do have, each player gains 3 tokens to take an action, and they can spend those tokens when they want to take an action. It's all controlled by the game master, so the game master can put the spotlight there. It's a capital S spotlight. They can move the spotlight around from the players and then to themselves, and the fear takes the spotlight away from the characters and spotlights an enemy or something like that. It says GM moves and adversary actions. GMs also make moves. They should consider making a move when a player does one of the following things. And essentially, this is the bounded actions of the game master, which kind of gives you a lot of freedom to do what you want when these things trigger. So rolls when a character does player does one of the following things. Rolls with fear on an action roll, like we talked about, failing with fear. Fails an action roll. Both happen that can happen twice, right? Does something that would have consequences. Gives them a golden opportunity. Looks to them for what happens next. And after the GM turn is done, the spotlight goes back to the PCs. It's a conversation. It goes back and forth. They just mechanized it here. And this is not very common in Dungeons and Dragons, but these the rolling with fear and failing in action, we get that. But when the player does something that would have a consequence, does something that gives them a golden opportunity, or looks to them for what happens next, like basically looks at the game master. This is the opportunity for the game master to step in and go, oh, you did something that has a consequence. Well, guess what? Now this thing happens, right? Or the player does something, and a golden opportunity could be like, the player says or does something and goes, ooh, this would be a great opportunity to throw in an NPC from their background, maybe an ally that travels with them. That ranger that's been going through the woods that always wanted an animal companion, maybe that small puppy snuggles up next to them at night and then lays next to them when they wake up in the morning. The puppy's in their bedroll, right? And this is a golden opportunity to give that player a little something that they wanted. Or looks to them for what happens next. The players look around and go, okay, we defeated the bad guys, now what? We got through the valley of tumbling rock, now what? We picked the lock, now what? We hid from the guards, now what? We got the information from the dinner party, now what? And then that's when it's your turn. And then when you're done, you give the spotlight back to them. Many adversaries and environments have fear features, especially powerful or consequential moves that the GM must spend fear to activate. So environments and enemies have things that are activated by fear. And that means that when the players give the game master fear, the enemies could be that much more fearful because the game master can spend the fear to activate those abilities or have the environment shift and change around them. And I love that. I love it so much. And it is mechanical on the player side and stealthy narrative on the GM side. And I really like that. I like that a lot. All right, but I'm gonna let you guys go. Here we go. Can Vengeance Guardians fight unarmed? From what I understand, yes. Yeah. From what I absolutely do understand, yes. Oh, shit. Shite. Go to Dubai all the time equals probably confession of human trafficking. Yeah. Test top secrets vehicle prototypes. He's a beta tester. Yeah. Drew says, my memory banks are filled with useless geek knowledge. I would not have the capacity to remember lies I could make up. Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, yeah, there's too much in my head. I don't have time to lie. Why? Yeah. The N King says, Matt Mercer's a good egg. He didn't have to do all this, but he knows what's important in the nerd circles where he does business. Talking about I presume you're referring to the SRD and the gaming license. Let me see. Let me switch over here so I know to talk about. Here it is. The community gaming license. So this is the gaming license. Slow clap on that one. This is the SRD. So anybody out there just like, oh, they just made this as a cash grab. They got cards. It's a cash grab. You mean the free game that I have right now? Wait, what? You know what I mean? Some people just, I don't know. That was a Betamax joke. You're so bad. As long as the GM makes no moves on me, he will be fine. You're so bad there, Drew. Yes, the CGL. Yep. It applies to Candela Obscura. I know we don't talk about Candela Obscura, but it means that, let me switch the license back again. But it means that with this community gaming license, let me so you guys can actually see a little bit better. With this Darrington Press community gaming license, DRP games right here means the role-playing games offered by DRP titled Candela Obscura and Daggerheart. Does that mean they could make a third game, a fourth game, a fifth game? Probably, right? And this is community gaming license 1.0. Could they update this with, let's say they put out a third game, a science fiction version of Daggerheart. Could they add that to this? Probably, very easily, you know? Licensed content means a game rules, but not copy-paste rulebook content. You can't copy and paste it. Mechanics, systems, tool sets, reference cards, stat blocks, and the names and attributes of game characters, setting locations are prohibited. This term excludes all prohibited content, and it tells you what the prohibited content is down there. So could you make cards for this game? Of course you can. Could you make I suppose, t-shirts. I'm trying to think of something out of soft maps, maybe. I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's like it's the best way to get the game to become sticky in the in our community, and I really appreciate that. They didn't have to do that. They did not have to do that at all. So tomorrow we're going to keep going. We're going to talk about rolling fear with hope and some other things, and hopefully we'll throw in some more best practices. But in summary, I would say, first of all, separate the failure of a character. You don't need to attach failure of a character to the consequences of that failure. A character could fail in an action, but the world just keeps getting worse. More guards, storm rolls in. That sleeping guard that was easy to sneak past gets woken by the captain of the guard, who's pissed off. The sleeping guard wakes up, and now the sleeping guard is basically like smacked in the back of the head, and now there's 3 more guards patrolling. Right? Did the player did it do anything bad to make that happen? No, but maybe the world is just getting worse off. That you're in the accursed desert, and the sandstorms are rolling in, right? That's not something you did. Maybe there's a migration of those giant scorpions coming across the desert or whatever, and your characters are struggling with a lack of food and water, and all of a sudden you hear in the distance, you see in the distance this dark line, and suddenly there's like giant scorpions or something crawling towards you. The players really didn't do anything to make that happen, but the world got worse because the fear mechanic, players facing, right? The fear mechanism fell into the game master's hand. I rolled dice that created the fear in the first place. Now the game master gets their turn and they get to use it. So the game master is almost a player character in many ways. They get a resource to spend. They get to hold on to it or spend it as they feel like it. And it feels less unfair from the player's side because they're the people who generated it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll find this in the rules, I believe the game master begins play with 1 fear per player plus 2. So if there's 3 players, they get 3 fear off the bat plus 2, which is 5. So they automatically start with 5. So the game master doesn't start at 0. And yes, the game master could go down to 0 if they spend enough of it. The Yankees. We're back in the accursed desert. Damn it, my character would never run out of water or lose his spice caravan, right? Yeah, that's my character's one unique feature: never run out of water. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, the End King. Everybody else, by the way, thank you very much for being part of the show. We're going to continue to talk about Daggerheart as we go throughout the week. Yes, we're going to talk about Obsidian Star, the game I'm working on. Yes, it has a phrasal feature, phrasic feature to it. Anyway, I'm butchering my own, confusing my own self. It has an ability where you have a phrase that you can use to ensure that you have some successes, right? And yes, players who gain hope can start the battle against the fear. Now, you cannot use hope to just get rid of the game master's fear. That's not how it works. What you do is you have certain capabilities for your character. So for example, if the fear starts building, maybe your character has a special ability that's like, you can spend up to 3 hope as long as you can spend as much hope as the game master has fear, or something of that feature, right? Like it's getting you're so precocious enshittification of success. I think so. Oh, I'm so horrible. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. We're going to talk about Daggerheart tomorrow as well. We will talk about more of the character creation process and how that works a little bit. Like I said, very D&D-esque. There's something very unique about how damage is done and hit points are done. Like I said, maybe 70% D&D on the player side, 70% narration and storytelling on the GM side, and does this very great blending of the two. And we've seen, mind you, Daggerheart doesn't cover new ground. What it does is it blends these features we've seen in a lot of indie games and kind of hides it under a D&D hard shell. And I like it. I like it a lot. The accursed desert. You have to say it like accursed. It's not an accursed. Accursed. Just like what is it? Bless. The difference between blessed and blessed. There's just something more ominous when you're just like the blessed blah blah blah, the accursed something or whatever. I don't know why. It's an Americanism. We love like pseudo unspecified Eurocentric pronunciations here in the States, especially if it's like expensive, like if it sounds vaguely French, you know what I mean? Vaguely UK-ish. I don't know why we're like that. We're so easily manipulated here in the States. We have such a hodgepodge of culture that we have to like pick and we get to pick other people's cultures and be like, that's amazing. And the people in their culture are like, you mean it's a Thursday for us? Anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. And by the way, you know what? I'm going to I'll put the link in the thing right now. Let's go to Daggerheart and copy this. I'm going to share. Let's go ahead and share Daggerheart, the webpage out. There we go. Share this out and pull it up from the bottom. From the bottom to the top. And here we go. And then put the link here. I when I can, I like to give attributions to things that are here. So this is the not very difficult to find, daggerheart.com. And here's the website. Let's reject these cookies here. And it gives you the resources, the void, buy now if you want to buy the game. Here's a community link, the Discord place. Here's some news that's come out. Here's some resources, download, session 0, card creator. If I'm not mistaken, they also have a create your own card system. If I page down here, what is Daggerheart? We'll get into, does this game actually have a setting? The answer to that is no. There is a mild setting, if you will. Daggerheart card creator live now, so you can create your own and print off your own cards. All the cards are only the rules, so you don't have to flip through the book. You don't need the cards to play the game. And for people that are just like, it's a cash grab, there's an SRD. It's for free. So chill. But yeah, having cards, and by the way, monster cards and that kind of stuff. Oh, let's wonder what. Create your world together. Yep. Game Master guides. Yep. Subscribe for some updates. The artwork is amazing. So Darrington Press. So sorry guys. Anyway, that is it. We're going to get out of here. Baked beans and corned beef hash equals Germanisms. My grandparents, actually my mom too. I grew up with people with baked beans and corned beef hash. I don't know why. Well, I did grow up in a place called Germantown, so I guess that's why that's a realism. Yeah. I mean, the neighborhood was called Germantown, settled by Germans. So, Germanisms were a common thing in the neighborhood, even if we didn't know that's where it came from. So, yeah. Well, I think you're joking a little bit. I did grow up in a place like that. Actually, you know what? Germantown in Philadelphia. Oh, there's the Ebenezer Maxwell. Share this. Ebenezer Maxwell House. You can visit that place. Wick Historic House. Johnson House. I know where that's at. I know exactly where I used to walk. Near Upsall Street. I used to walk past that all the time. The little park behind it. Vernon Park. Yep. That's really cool. Art museum. Oh, they really say it like that here. Like the cool way to pronounce accursed. Oh, I didn't. Well, I'm not saying it does. People don't say it. I'm saying it like we. You realize, because you from here in the States, right? It's sometimes we can get a little bit of a lazy tongue, and it always sounds cooler because when something sounds foreign, it always sounds cooler. Which always makes me wonder, it's we find it funny that people think the United States is a cool place to be. It's like, nah, not really. It seems like another Thursday to us, and it would just be cool to be in a historic place where people are just like, nah, it's just like another Thursday. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.